Elon Musk just confirmed that Tesla's AI compute is a massive behemoth. His comment that you better play to win or don't play at all is a warning to others how serious Tesla is growing their compute power. Elon said that Tesla's next generation computer after Hardware 4 will be called AI 5, and it will have 10 times the capability of Hardware 4 and will be ready by the second half of next year. So how much more compute does Tesla need to get the March of Nines needed for full reliability for Robotaxi? Elon answers that question. Also, we'll also hear from the CEO of Huawei what they are thinking of Tesla's FSD. I've got Larry Goldberg joining us. He's a multi-entrepreneur traveling the world, appreciating every time he gets to join me. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thanks for having me here.
This is one of your favorite topics. You have a lot to say, a lot of knowledge about Tesla's AI compute and what they're doing. And I know you've been traveling today, so might have missed some of this big news that came out today, I think. Pretty big, and you could tell me what you think. But this is a photo of this building that they're building at the south center of Tesla's Giga, Texas. And this is going to be where they house a lot of the data center, one of the locations right in Giga, Texas. And you can see these massive fans that are here. This guy Smokeaway said Elon is building a giant GPU cooler in Texas. Elon makes fun of it. He says we're nothing without our fans. And then he added sizing for about 130 megawatts of power and cooling this year, but will increase to 500 megawatts over the next 18 months or so, aiming for about half Tesla AI hardware, half NVIDIA and others. This is where he said his statement, play to win or don't play at all. What do you think, Larry? Is he playing to win? Is this big?
You know, nobody plays to win as hard as Elon. I mean, once he's made up his mind, game over. And he's made up his mind. This is, as he said, he's opening a new book. This is a new book. This is taking the scale to another level. You know, we talk about the hyperscalers and, them providing, LLM and providing all this kind of capability, but nobody is providing this level of focus on a single application and this level of power behind this kind of application. So this is amazing. And, this is the kind of level of commitment that we see the Chinese make. The only thing is this may be even a greater scale than the Chinese are able to bring to bear. It's an amazing, amazing scale.
Yeah, the only thing that's a little bit bigger that we've heard, right? Last show we did, remember, was the XAI announcing that they're going to have the largest supercomputer in Memphis. And it's going to be like, you take the largest supercomputer today, multiply it by 2, then you multiply that by 4. And this is how big they're building XAI. But then Elon has said that Tesla is going to even be more compute than that. So this is another person who posted out, no way, Elon literally building a giant GPU graphics card. This is a joke, but it's hilarious. It does look like a graphic card, doesn't it? Elon replied to him, basically just a graphics card at scale. And it's funny, but it's actually not that funny because it really is, and he explains it, it really is everything, right? You've got the fan, you've got the compute server, you've got the software. You really are. Anyways, Omar says half Dojo, half NVIDIA. And he replied, mostly hardware 4, some Dojo. So at least there's a Dojo. But the hardware 4 will then become hardware 5, which has been renamed to AI 5 in the second half of next year. The Tesla AI 5 computer has 10 times the capability of hardware 4 computer, and Tesla makes the whole software stack. That's the other thing about that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, this is very eye-opening because we're beginning to learn that Tesla is building a huge, huge capability of inference. Hardware 4 and AI 5 are inference chips, inference computers. And so they're putting as much effort into inference as they're putting into training, if not more so. I saw some conversation about whether they're building AI 5 because AI 4 would not, or AI 3 and AI 4 were not up to the job of FSD. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the case that they're making, or the issue is that they're building this enormous, round trip of inference training, to perfect, to perfect the model. And so up to now, they've been depending upon the fleet to provide the raw data, but now they're using inference to not only process that raw data but actually generate data. And so we're seeing a flywheel being built, a massive flywheel being built, and this is very promising for the future. Very promising for the future. And not only promising for the future, but also it's going to be very hard, very tough for competitors to compete with this. Very, very tough. We're looking at scale for a particular single application, the likes of which the world has never seen, ever.
Yeah, it looks like Tesla owns the entire stack too. Jeff
Yep.
Lutz was explaining that NVIDIA has to partner to get their software stack, and they have to partner with like other parts to put this all together. Here, Elon has said and the software stack too. When you heard AI5, a couple of people told me this. Robin from Robin TV in Europe was the first one who told me. I thought it was interesting. He said that you heard Elon say that AI5 is going to be launched about 18 months from now, a year and a half from now. And he said that hardware 4 is like 5 times better than hardware 3. AI5, they're renaming it to AI5. That's going to be 10 times better than hardware 4. But if it's 18 months from now, doesn't it kind of make sense that they will launch? That's when we'll expect the Robotaxi first designed vehicle that's going to use the AI5. Makes sense, right?
Not necessarily so. AI5 may not just be for the vehicle. AI5 may be for this round trip that I've been talking about. So I kind of dispute the sense that because AI5 is 50 times more powerful than hardware 3, that hardware 3 is obviously not sufficient for a robotaxi. I don't think that's true at all. I think what they're looking at is the need to improve this round trip of inference to training and inference to training, and I think that's the purpose and focus of hardware 5. I think that the better hardware 5 becomes, the more powerful hardware 3, the more powerful, the greater the potential for hardware 3. So I don't think that FSD depends upon hardware 4 or hardware 5. I think FSD is going to work fine in hardware 3, but I think that hardware 5 is necessary to achieve the speed of the round trip from the training through the inference and back through the training, this loop that they have to create, not only for using the images and the video from the fleet, but also feeding those into an inference, right, and then creating, scenarios in the software. So, it's very complex. I don't pretend to be an expert in AI, but this is certainly the kind of approach I would have expected. And we are going to see every generation of hardware doubling, tripling, and quadrupling and quintupling the speed and capability of the previous generation. That's just the way hardware is. But just as we could run software on many versions of earlier chips that we develop in, the latest version of chips, so the same is going to be true of the inference chips in the cars.
So, are you pretty happy? I'm surprised. I'm happy that this is what I was expecting. But Tesla and Elon will be making announcements of massive data centers, not only for XAI, but for Tesla. In this case, Giga Texas, that he's explaining how hardware 3, hardware 4, AI 5, the owning the entire software stack. And in fact, he has confirmed, right, that what you're saying, which is the inference training is actually in the data center. And so that they can just increase the flywheel for the training part of it. So that you don't have to, you'll already know what it's going to be when it gets out there to the edge computing out there. Yeah. Are you
You
surprised?
asked me if I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Am I pleased? Yes, I'm pleased. Am I
Yeah.
surprised? No, I'm not surprised.
Good.
It's the very least I expect from Elon.
Well,
Elon is remorseless. It's the rate of evolution at Tesla is just inconceivable to these general analysts and how they think about the average rate of development. So we're seeing the Tesla flywheel in operation, the development flywheel in operation, and it's remorseless. It's not going to end with AI 5. It's going to get to AI 10 very rapidly, and they're going to have discoveries and setbacks, and we're just going to see this thing evolve and evolve and evolve. FSD is not, we achieved, autonomy and we're done. Not at all. Once autonomy is achieved, there are many other horizons that can be achieved once autonomy is done. And that touches Optimus as well. But I mean, we are just at the beginning of this journey. This is not, FSD is not the end. FSD is the beginning.
yeah. I love it. I mean, at the very beginning, we said that Elon's statement was, if you're not playing to win, don't play at all.
Right.
You need to be at the stage. Only the big boys, only the ones who have planned ahead, only the ones who've got, I guess what I said, are you surprised? And you said, not at all for you, but come on. You know that a lot of people have been saying, oh, Elon's like distracted. He's not.
Yeah.
A lot of things we're talking about here, he planned 6 months ago. He set
Yeah.
in motion a year ago. Now you're hearing the announcements of people going, like, you weren't doing anything 6 months ago. Are you kidding me? Look what this is what he's doing.
What we're seeing happening in Giga Texas, those plans were drawn up 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Tesla announced around about, actually before we arrived at the opening of Giga Texas, Elon spoke about the extension to the south. We should look it up. We should pull it out.
Yeah.
Because people think this is happening, because of the AI announcement or because of the vote or because of blah, blah, blah. No, this is 2 years old, this plan. This is not something that just happened yesterday. This was planned for. And so, when you see the batteries that they installed at Giga Texas, when you see the south extension that was planned and designed 2.5 years ago, you begin to understand just how carefully they're laying their plans and they're building this capability. So, people who don't understand Tesla will never understand Tesla. That's just the fact of life. So does it surprise me? Not at all. Does it please me? Of course.
I love it. Well spoken, well said. This is something that they put in place 2.5 years ago. And that also shows that, yes, there will be competitors. Yes, they'll catch up, but you better start now because there's a head start here.
If they start now, they're 5 years late. If they start now, they're 5 years late. If they started 2 years ago, they're 3 years late. I mean, this is, right. And they have a remorseless competitor. Remorseless.
That's just going to accelerate faster. Let's talk FSD now. So what does all this compute impact FSD? So there's this great comment that Jeff asked to that thread there that we were just reading. If FSD is basically done, what's the point of this massive GPU supercomputer?
Well,
come on, why are you doing that?
I mean, that's a question. We have a very ancient ritual in Jewish practice. We ask 4 questions. In the night of the Passover, there are four questions asked, and four questioners who question the rabbi as to why we're doing these things. And one of the questions is asked by the guy who doesn't have the sense to ask questions, who doesn't have the intelligence to ask questions. I mean, this is an unintelligent question. This is like saying we have a 8086 processor. It's running MS-DOS. Why would we want a bigger processor? I mean, this is a questioner who's asking a question that has no sense of what innovation means and what progress in compute means, and what progress in modern innovation really means at all.
All right, well, let's be fair. Jeff is a great guy. This Jeff tutorial, very smart dude. And he's just saying, right? Just repeating what he's heard, we've all heard, which is FSD is already no longer compute constrained, right? He said that. So this guy.
But does he think FSD comes to an end when you actually solve autonomous driving? Seriously. Yeah. I mean, he's a good guy, whatever. But does he seriously consider that, you reach FSD and you're done?
He's asking a question. So he said, if it's done, why do you need this? So this guy says, well, listen, every .9, which is the March of Nines, every time you add a March of Nine, so if 99.9, that's 3 nines, you have that 99.9% reliability, but you'll probably need 99.99, 99.999999. Every time you add a .9 in reliability, that's approximately 10 times the required compute. That's why this is the start, not the end.
I love the last sentence. This is the start, not the end. But there's another factor to consider. Yes, I see what Elon said, but there's another factor to consider. FSD is not the end. FSD is the beginning. Just because the car can drive itself in our given traffic, regime and in a given environment in the United States or in Europe or in China, that's not the end. That's just the beginning. There's a huge journey of innovation to come from this capability. Huge journey of innovation. Not the least of which is Optimus. I mean, Optimus is an outgrowth of FSD. So just because we can do what the human has been doing driving for the last 100 years, this is not the end of FSD. This is the beginning of what FSD unlocks. There's a huge world of innovation to follow from.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, Elon has said before, right, that eventually Robotaxi will be superhuman. So first step is, be equal, say as safe, 5 times safer, 10 times safer, then eventually start doing maneuvers that are superhuman. And then maybe even like driving 100 miles an hour, whatever, 70 miles an hour, and then never hitting anything. Who knows if we ever want that, but it can be superhuman. And then what you just said, a good reminder. The cars are actually robots on wheels. And then now you're going to be applying this to robots, which is unlimited. So you're right. You don't necessarily have to separate FSD because the robots need to understand the environment and move. So here's what Elon said in reply to those questions. He said, not as high as that. So this guy said every 9 will approximately need 10 times the required compute. That's why he said, well, it's not as high as that, but still very high. The March of Nines of reliability requires massive data and compute. So in one way, it's kind of negative in that he's saying it's not yet complete, like you're saying. But in the other way, it requires massive data and compute. And guess what? We're building the massive data and compute. Like, here's what we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think back to the evolution of the PC. I remember I was a relatively young man when I bought my first Apple computer, and we plugged in VisiCalc. Nobody knows what VisiCalc is today. Interesting.
Of course. First
and
runaway software that made the computer relevant. Excel, before Excel. Yeah.
Right. And, I began to realize where this thing was going. Now, today, if you look at what the modern computer does, and the telephone has become the modern computer, you realize that it wasn't issue of just making the computer more powerful to make VisiCalc a little bit better, so that Lotus 123 could come along, so that Excel could come along, so that we could do today what we do online with online spreadsheets. It the you cannot begin to conceive of the power, of the potential that the power brings you. And the power is not just doubling or tripling. It's multiplying by a factor of 10, and then a factor of 100, and then a factor of 1,000, then a factor of 1,000,000. That's really what compute is all about. And so we're just beginning this journey right now. And the fact that we have 6 million cars, the fact that we have this huge compute being built up, this is very, very critical to this journey that we're on. So, people who minimize the value of the fleet, minimize the value of Tesla's compute, minimize the value of Tesla's people, don't begin to understand, just how important this journey is.
Okay, so let's. That was the future. Let's get back to what's happening right now. Of course, we're all waiting for August 8th, which is 50 days away from now. But there's every day new news, little bit of pieces of news that's dropping about China specifically. We got 3 to explain what's happening here. So the first, just this morning, Tesla Chan said that according to the China news reports in China, Tom Zhu, who's in charge of supply chain in China for Tesla, he said he was asked the question, and when he visited one of the stores, one of the sales staffs was asked the question. Tom Zhu answered it, which is, when is FSD going to launch in China? And Tom Zhu said soon. Now, yeah, sure, soon could be anything. Nothing really new there, but it's interesting that he said that. So, this is Tom Zhu. This isn't Elon and Elon's time. This is him. So the other thing that happened is Xiaopeng CEO, who also has their version of FSD, he took a ride in Tesla's version 12.3.6, and he's asking, hey, can I try out 12.4? So he's been in the US for a while, and he wants to test out both FSD and Waymo. So he's been trying to test them out, and he wants to compare them with their own advanced driver assist program. And he's saying, he sent out a post saying this: I'm in the US for a long time this time, so I'll take this opportunity to review the latest version of FSD and Waymo. I have Tesla FSD version 12.3.6 here. So if you have the beta version of 12.4.1, please lend it to me. Thank you. And then, I don't know, maybe lost in translation, but thank you for the comparison between FSD and Xiaopeng. So he's trying to compare his versus FSD. And if you want to know more about what aspects, you can tell me. Yes, I don't know, is he joking around telling FSD, hey, if you can, or people, you said, right? If you think people are, if you can tell me the difference with FSD and Xiaopeng, please tell him. What do you think, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we're on this journey, and there are a lot of competitors, and every competitor is going to stake his claim. It'd be interesting to see, how the Chinese folks do. I mean, nothing is more important right now than getting FSD onto the streets of China, onto the streets of the United States, and onto the streets in Europe. A lot of European drivers of Teslas who are aching to get FSD. So it's time, the time is here.
Okay. And then Elon actually responded to that. He said the Chinese automakers are going to be the most competitive. Don't know if he referred to FSD or
I'm sure he did.
Just commonly what he's been saying. So that's Xiaopeng CEO. Actually, something very similar. This Huawei CEO, another Chinese automaker, also said something similar just, I think it feels like 3 weeks ago. So Ray for Tesla reported this. Huawei CEO Yu Chengdong says Tesla has massive fleet data advantage. He said that Tesla has a massive fleet data advantage and has been working on FSD for a long time. The system's really good, he said. Since FSD is unavailable in China, Huawei sent engineers to California and Canada to test it out. he believes Huawei's autonomous system is slightly superior to FSD in China. So he still says that ours is still slightly superior to FSD, the claim of which now obviously deviates from his earlier well ahead claim. Earlier, he said that our system is well ahead. Now he says slightly superior, but then he also said Tesla has a massive fleet data advantage and has been working for FSD for a long time. So he's starting to kind of like, this is him, soften, but also kind of, still like you said, needs to make this point. This is him. And of course, speaking Chinese, so we just translate it for folks here.
Well, China is the great, it's proved to be a massive value add for Tesla. And it's going to be true in FSD, just as it was in the cars. And China's using Elon as their stalking horse. They're putting Elon out there to show the Chinese CEOs and the Chinese auto companies and the Chinese software people, how to go forward and who they have to compete with. So I think it's going to be fantastic. But what we're looking at is a much broader view that Elon has of FSD and AGI in general. The Chinese folks are looking at this narrow view of the product as a whole. So I think that's what distinguishes what Elon is doing from what they're doing.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're going to very likely see partnerships between these Chinese automakers and Tesla.
Look, what did it take Ford to adopt the North America charging standards? It took the CEO of Ford to drive a Ford EV across the United States.
Right, that's right.
To understand just how bad the charging situation was.
For him, yeah, that's right.
It's going to be the same situation. He's going to drive a Ford using the Ford auto drive crap that they have. So, excuse me, Ford, but that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to drive Tesla FSD, and he's going to come back home and he's going to give it some thought. He's going to do exactly what he did with the charging standard, because that's what the Chinese are going to do.
That's what they're doing. That's why they're both and more are obviously testing it. Of course, they're going to test it, but when they see the difference, and just like people here, they keep saying, "Oh, don't you know the Chinese have they have autonomy there now?" Yes,
yeah,
but
right.
Dive a little deeper, find out exactly what they can do and what they can't do. What are the restrictions? What's the capabilities? And you'll notice that one is not the same product that we're talking about. Anyways, okay. So huge compute advantage, huge data advantage. FSD is progressing. Competitors testing it out. We'll see how this goes. Thank you very much, Larry. Follow him on X at TESLA Larry. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.